Fangs versus Quills, the untold battle of King Cobra and Porcupine. The King Cobra moved like a living shadow across the dry savanna, its massive coils sliding silently over the cracked earth, its hood rising high with dominance, and its golden eyes fixed on the clearing ahead where the porcupine rummaged for food, unaware of the predator closing in. The air between them carried an ancient tension, the type of primal energy that only exists when two forces of nature meet. The sharp venom of the serpent against the sharp quills of the rodent, fangs against armor, predator against survivor. The King Cobra hissed, its hood flaring wider, venom glistening on its curved fangs, every muscle rippling with coiled fury. While the porcupine froze mid-step, its body stiffening as instinct screamed danger. Slowly, the porcupine arched its back, hundreds of quills rising like spears from its body, transforming the small creature into a fortress bristling with weapons. It was no ordinary prey, and the King Cobra, seasoned by countless hunts, knew this would not be a simple strike and kill. The savanna itself seemed to hold its breath, waiting to see who would make the first move. The King Cobra began its deadly dance, circling with precision, tongue flicking rapidly to taste the scent of fear. While the porcupine shuffled backward, quills rattling with a chilling sound that echoed like warning drums in the night. The serpent moved with grace, its body flowing like liquid steel, while the porcupine rotated slowly, always keeping its spines toward the danger, determined not to expose a single inch of weakness. Their standoff was more than survival. It was nature's cruel theater, a clash no creature could ignore. When the King Cobra struck, it was like lightning tearing through the sky, fangs darting with lethal speed towards soft flesh. But the porcupine spun its body at the last moment. But the serpent's head smashed into a wall of quills. Sharp needles pierced the cobra's scales, blood oozing where the barbs tore into its flesh. And the serpent recoiled violently, its hiss turning into a scream of rage. The porcupine rattled louder, squealing as if to say it would not fall so easily, standing small yet unyielding against the monarch of snakes. The King Cobra, enraged and bleeding, lifted its body high, swaying hypnotically as if to break the courage of its foe, while the porcupine lowered its head, stamping its feet into the dirt, bracing for another storm. Each creature embodied the peak of its defenses. Venom against quills, speed against patience, hunger against survival. The savanna had seen lions and leopards, but this battle was stranger, fiercer, but destined to become a story passed down by the very wind. The King Cobra, despite the searing pain of quills lodged in its jaw, coiled tighter, muscles bulging like iron cables as it steadied its trembling body. The porcupine shuffled a few steps backward, each quill standing erect like the spears of an army. The serpent's hood widened, shimmering faintly under the moonlight, a terrifying crown of death, while the spiny rodent's rattle echoed like a drum of defiance. Neither predator nor prey moved recklessly now. Each understood the danger of the other, and the silent savanna became their arena, a battlefield where blood had already been drawn. The cobra struck again, lightning fast. But this time its fangs scraped across quills instead of flesh, snapping two barbs loose that embedded themselves deeper into its own throat. The serpent hissed in agony, body thrashing like a whip cracking through the night, while the porcupine seized the chance to pivot, stabbing even more quills into the predator's coils. Blood sprayed across the dry earth, staining the battlefield red. As the serpent's body writhed desperately against the armor it could not penetrate, the rodent squealed, standing lower to the ground, every movement defensive yet lethal. The snake shifted its strategy, slowing its rhythm, slithering in a wide circle as though trying to hypnotize its smaller opponent. Its golden eyes burned with a murderous gleam, tongue flickering rapidly, tasting not only the air but the blood dripping from its own wounds. The porcupine, exhausted yet alert, shuffled in small arcs, always turning its spiny fortress toward the serpent, refusing to allow its vulnerable side to be exposed. Each step crackled with tension, each sound amplified in the quiet night, until even the crickets dared not sing. Finally, the cobra lunged with all its power, fangs bared and body arched high. For a brief second, it looked unstoppable, a streak of scaled fury destined to end the struggle. But the porcupine, relying on instinct older than memory, threw itself sideways, quills slashing through the air like a storm of daggers. The serpent's jaw collided headfirst into the spiny shield, and the impact was catastrophic. Dozens of quills drove into its flesh, piercing deeper than before, some barbs snapping off inside the muscles, lodging themselves where no thrashing could dislodge them. The serpent shrieked in a hiss so violent it seemed to rattle the stars. The porcupine staggered from the effort, venom still burning in its veins. But it remained upright, its defense unbroken. Across from it, the cobra sagged, bleeding from its neck, its once majestic hood drooping under the weight of injury. Yet even wounded and weakened, the predator refused surrender. It began to sway again, slower now, its coils twitching with exhaustion but also with determination. The two creatures faced one another under the moonlight, shadows stretching long across the earth, locked in a battle neither could abandon. For in the wild there is no retreat, only victory or death. The king cobra dragged its body through the dust, quills lodged deep in its muscles tearing fresh wounds with every motion, yet its golden eyes still locked firmly on the porcupine. Pain radiated through its frame, but the predator's pride refused to let it slither away defeated. The porcupine shuffled slowly, breath ragged, venom already coursing through its bloodstream. But still it bristled its armor, each quill raised like an iron wall against the serpent's hunger. Both creatures were bloodied, both exhausted, yet neither willing to yield, for surrender in the savanna was the same as death. The serpent's hood quivered as it raised itself once again, towering over the smaller opponent like a dark pillar of fury. His hiss, though weaker now, still carried a razor's edge of menace that cut through the air. The porcupine answered not with sound but with action, stamping its feet and swinging its spiny back toward the threat. The two warriors had fallen into rhythm, strike and counter, lash and block, each testing the other's limits as if nature itself demanded a trial of endurance. The savanna felt alive with their struggle, each blade of grass bent under the pressure of survival's duel. With a sudden surge of power, the king cobra lunged low, aiming for the porcupine's underbelly, the one place its armor was weakest. But the porcupine collapsed onto its side, rolling violently, and the serpent's fangs found only dust. Instead, the cobra's face collided with a fresh barrage of quills that tore into its jaw and eyes, forcing it back with another hiss of rage. The rodent squealed in pain too, for the venom within was spreading faster, weakening its legs, slowing its heartbeat. Yet even in weakness, the porcupine's quills were an unshakable fortress. The king cobra recoiled, half-blind now, with blood streaming down from punctured scales around its eyes. Still, it circled stubbornly, swaying side to side, its body dragging quills embedded so deep they rattled as it moved. The porcupine, trembling but unbroken, forced itself upright once more. Its defenses had not failed. Its will had not broken. The serpent's venom might be poison to the blood, but its fangs had found no true victory. But the savanna itself seemed to whisper that the armored creature was still untouchable. Both combatants froze, staring across the space between them. Predator and defender, venom and quills, hunger and resilience. The king cobra knew its venom had already begun to claim the porcupine's strength. But the porcupine knew its quills had already carved wounds too deep for the serpent to recover from. They were locked in a stalemate of agony, each bleeding, each poisoned, each barely clinging to the strength left in their battered bodies. And yet, as the stars above glittered cold and distant, both animals pressed forward once more, driven not by choice but by the savage laws of nature. The king cobra lashed forward again, striking with desperate force, its coils whipping the earth into a storm of dust. But the porcupine had learned its rhythm. It swung its back sharply, quills erupting into the serpent's open mouth. Blood gushed from torn flesh as the cobra thrashed violently. But the barbs refused to dislodge, turning its own hunger into torment. The porcupine squealed weakly, wobbling on its trembling legs. But its fortress of spines had held true, drawing strength from survival's instinct older than fear itself. The serpent's body twisted like a storm, smashing against stones and tearing the ground into shallow trenches. Yet every movement only drove the quills deeper into its flesh. The porcupine staggered, venom burning hot within, vision blurring as the world swayed. But still it pressed closer to the cobra's bulk, refusing to fall. The air stank of blood and venom, heavy with the smell of war. Neither creature belonged to defeat, yet the earth demanded that one must fall. With a final surge of will, the king cobra lifted itself as tall as its broken body would allow. Hood spread wide, it looked once more like the monarch of serpents, golden eye blazing with fury. The porcupine, its sides heaving, forced its quills upward, rattling with the last of its strength. Predator and prey no longer mattered. Both stood as warriors locked in the ancient ritual of survival. Silence fell across the savanna, as if even the wind waited to see the last act of this battle. The cobra struck, a blur of venom and rage, sinking its fangs deep into the porcupine's side. Venom surged into the bloodstream, deadly and fast. But in that same heartbeat, the porcupine twisted with all its remaining power, slamming its body into the serpent's head. Quills erupted through scale and muscle, piercing its throat, its hood, its eye. Both creatures screamed, one in hiss, one in squeal, as blood painted the ground beneath them. The porcupine stumbled backward, its quills snapping off inside the serpent's body, leaving a forest of barbs lodged deep where no healing could occur. The king cobra writhed in agony, choking as blood filled its mouth, venom dripping uselessly from shattered fangs. Both creatures collapsed into the dust, the battlefield scarred by their struggle. Yet even on the ground, they did not stop. The serpent coiled weakly, the rodent bristled faintly. Neither ready to admit death had come. But death was already near. The king cobra's muscles convulsed, its great body trembling as the poison of exhaustion joined the pain of its wounds. Its coils slackened, hood flattening as its golden eye dimmed into shadow. The porcupine, quills bloodied and broken, dragged itself backward with tiny, faltering steps. Venom burned through its veins like fire, but still its heart beat stubbornly. For in this savage duel, survival itself was the greatest victory. The king cobra's final hiss escaped its throat, weak, broken, a whisper of a predator that had once ruled. His body slumped into the dust, twitching once. Then lying still, the savanna claiming its fallen king. The porcupine stood over the corpse, trembling but upright, its small frame casting a defiant shadow against the massive bulk of the serpent. Bloodied, poisoned, scarred, it was no conqueror, only a survivor. And that was enough. The porcupine staggered away slowly, leaving behind the lifeless serpent. Each step felt like a war within, venom clawing at its heart, muscles screaming in protest. But its spirit carried it forward. The savanna whispered with new sounds. Jackals in the distance, owls above. Life returning to the battlefield now that the duel was done. The ground soaked with blood told the story. A king had fallen, but not without leaving scars on its challenger. Dawn crept slowly over the horizon, golden light spilling across the battlefield. The king cobra's body glistened with morning dew, a broken monument of power. The porcupine, half hidden in tall grass, curled tightly into a ball, quills still raised even in sleep. It had not escaped unscathed, but it had escaped alive. But in the law of the wild, that was triumph. As the sun climbed higher, scavenger birds circled above, drawn to the scent of death. The king cobra would feed the earth now, its legend buried with its body. But the porcupine, small and humble, would live to see another night, carrying scars as proof of its courage. This was not the story of predator and prey, but of two titans clashing, Fangs against quills, venom against armor. But in the end, resilience had endured. The Savanna would whisper the tale for generations. How the King Cobra, master of venom, met the Porcupine, master of defense. How the serpent's fury met the rodent's patience. How death claimed one and spared the other. And so the story was written not by victory, not by conquest, but by survival, the truest law of the wild.